I'm Lynn Scanella, and welcome to my podcast, Fruitful Conversations, where we chat to people who share their stories to teach and inspire us to be better versions of ourselves. Now, I'm not talking about, major transformations. I'm just talking about little bits. So maybe there's something you hear in the podcast that you go, oh yeah, I like that. That resonates with me. It strikes a chord. And it may cause you to think differently or perhaps act differently in a better way. I live in the Northern Rivers of New South Wales, and to put food on the table, I do a bit of speaking, a bit of writing, some facilitating and some training, all around healthy, connected, respectful workplace relationships. You'll hear me talk about apples and mangoes and limes and bananas as far as fruit behaviour is concerned. Yeah, look, I know, but it's a living and I love it. Today's guest is an urbane, passionate man with a cause. Graham Ross is not only the founder and CEO of Blocktexx, he's also the founder and CEO of sports brand Kusaga Athletics. He's an ex-television guy, a producer, cameraman, editor, executive. He's mad about sports. He used to be an endurance athlete, think marathon man, triathletes, and he's got the world's probably most well-travelled cat, who moved with him and his family from Sydney to Singapore to London and back to Sydney again. You'll enjoy this conversation. Let's have a chat to Graham Ross. Okay, so Graham, you've got two businesses, Kusaga Athletic and Blocktexx, and sort of inadvertently one led into another. But let's start with Kusaga first. Can you tell me how that came to pass?
Okay, so Kusaga, and it's very dear to my heart, this company, because it was a complete career change. So my background was in media. In Australia, I had independent production companies. We were making programs for all the major networks for subscription TV when it started. I had an opportunity to move overseas with my wife's work, and it was a great opportunity to take some time out of what I was doing and spend some time with the kids. And so we moved to Singapore and eventually into London. Yeah. During that time, I had some time just to kind of go, well, what do I want to do with my life? I was quite overweight. I was pretty unhealthy. I was living a pretty full-on crazy Sydney lifestyle before we went overseas. So I started to get a bit more active. I started running, and I met a few people in Singapore who were doing triathlons at that stage.
Yeah.
And so that seemed like a little bit of fun, although it was, mid-30 heat, 365 days a year is not the greatest time to be exercising, but it kind of is where we ended up. By the time I moved to London, I'd done a bunch of races, and I continued sort of throughout Europe. And after every race, you get given a T-shirt, so it says, I completed this, and that's really cool because you kind of get to say, look, I did that. Anyway, One day I looked in my wardrobe, and I literally had a wardrobe full of all these finisher shirts, and I didn't wear them because they didn't feel comfortable. They after you wore them a few times, they smelt really bad. And you kind of, they just weren't right. And so I thought it was really interesting because I'm racing with thousands and thousands of people. And I thought there's actually a business here because there's all these sponsors who aren't getting seen. And so I called up some mates and said, do you guys wear these finisher shirts? They said, yeah, after the race because I'm hot and sweaty, and then on the plane home just so I can show off that I've done the race. And I thought, well, that's kind of my experience. So I didn't have any idea at that stage what my clothes were made of. And I was to discover, like most people's wardrobes, my wardrobe included polyester, cotton, and some spandex and lycra with my sporting equipment. What I didn't know, and I guess from my background in television, I did some research, I didn't realize that the clothes that I considered to be safe and healthy and not environmentally damaging were incredibly damaging. And when I did the research, I was incredibly shocked. It blew me away that polyester is a man-made petrochemical, so it comes from oil. It was developed in the late 50s, and we haven't evolved from that. And it can take hundreds and hundreds of years to break down in landfill. And it's actually the same material that makes a Coke bottle. So which is really, really bizarre. And cotton is really thirsty in regards to watering, and it's got a high use of chemicals, pesticides and that sort of stuff. So I thought, well, surely there's materials out there we can make that we could make more environmentally friendly, but also make you kind of want to wear it more often. And at that stage, there wasn't a lot. There was obviously hemp and bamboo, but they don't make great run gear. And so I did a lot of research, found myself in laboratory papers that I probably didn't have any right to be into. And I found a bunch of fibers. And then I guess what most Australians do. I picked up the phone and rang these companies and said, I really like your fibers. Can I get hold of them? And they were kind of going, kind of, who are you? So eventually, over a period of time, I managed to get 11 new fibers that hadn't been released to the market, or they'd kind of been developed and left in warehouses. And then I kind of had to literally go back to Google and go, well, how do you make fabric? Because I had no background in the fashion industry.
Right.
And so I then found a factory in Korea and called them up and said, I've got all these fibers you never heard of. I want to make some fabrics. And then the journey kind of went on from there.
Right. Okay. So you've got you in amongst all of that, you made the greenest tea on the planet. So how can you claim that title?
Yeah, we claim the title from a couple of things. We took two fibers that had never been put together before to make a fabric, and so both those products, both those materials, don't require extra watering, so the water contents come down. They don't require heavy fertilizing, so that impact has come down. And they're also biodegradable, so the end of life, you throw them back into the garden and they break down. Yeah. And so if you think about an average t-shirt, an average cotton t-shirt uses about 3,000 litres of water to grow the cotton and to manufacture the shirt. Our greenest tea uses less than 1% of that. We're at 21.9 litres of water per t-shirt.
That's incredible. Okay, so you're doing all this stuff with fabrics and textiles, and enter thoughts of Blocktexx. How did that then evolve?
Yeah, I think so. As I started to learn the industry, and by this stage, Kusaga was 3 or 4 years old. We'd progressed into activewear and sportswear shirts. We were distributing both in Australia, but shipping internationally. We'd done a bunch of work with corporates around the place and with sporting companies. Yeah. What I started to understand, as I started to understand the supply chain, and I spent a lot of time in Asia as we manufactured, I understood that there was a phenomenal amount of product was being made each year. There's about 100 billion garments, more than 100 billion garments made each year around the world.
Wow.
It's just staggering, right?
Staggering, yeah.
You think about it, like we were, in general, we'd all buy at least 5 shirts a year. I mean, that would just be standard, right? But what we haven't got, and it's a disconnect because the provenance or the ownership of the product. So as I said before, your polyester run shirt is the same material as your Coke bottle, but you wouldn't think of throwing a Coke bottle on the ground. We've kind of grown up to know to recycle the Coke bottle.
Yes.
But our clothing journey is really simple. End of life, once the brand sells it to us, we own it, right? And so then the end of life options are up to generally the consumer, because we don't really have strong take back schemes from brands at this stage. So Australians are great because we donate them to charity, because the most important thing with your end of life is to get it into a second use. But what about all the garments that have been loved to death? They've got a hole in it, it's got stained or torn. The only other option, and this is not only in this country but around the world, is to put it into the rubbish bin, which then goes to landfill. And so that didn't make sense to me, because fundamentally, because I'd physically paid to make my fibers and paid to make my fabrics, I knew that there was an inherent value in that product. So you're literally throwing away dollars by throwing your shirt out.
Yeah.
And so so I knew that there was increasing problem of clothing going to landfill. I mean, in Australia, there's upwards of about a million tons of textiles going to landfill in Australia.
1 million tons of textiles go to landfill that don't break down. So 1 million tons, so a ton is 1,000 kilograms, right? So if you think 1,000 kilograms in 1 ton, let's take a cat. An average cat is half a kilo. So you've got 200 cats. You got 200 cats. Come with me on this. And so what's 1 million times 200? 200 million cats worth in landfill. That's wrong. That's got to be wrong.
Yeah, it's wrong. It's wrong on a couple of points. One, it has a huge environmental impact. So as these man-made materials break down, they emit a lot of CO2 into the air. They also leak the dyes and chemicals into the land, into water courses. It doesn't make sense. We recycle plastic bottles. Why don't we recycle clothing? So I knew that we needed to fundamentally come up with a process that could do that. And so there you can take a polyester shirt and mechanically scrunch it up and then melt it and then turn it back into a filament, which you can then make into a fiber.
Right.
But because over the years our clothing have become more and more blended, so most clothing will be a polycotton blend. Your work shirts, your clothes, your jeans and other clothes have got little bits of lycra and spandex. So as the industries expanded and fast fashion came on, we started to short circuit the way we made clothing. So it wasn't about fit. If you could put something in that made things stretch, you could still be a 10 when you're really a 12, right? That's kind of how it is. So it's a really perfect storm. We're flooding the market with more and more fast fashion that doesn't last, and you can't get to recycle, so it's got to go in landfill. And we weren't appreciating that there was value. And so I was doing a bunch of work with the Queensland University of Technology, and I knew the guys, and I knew that they were doing some work in wool and polyester separation. So I approached them with the idea that I had some knowledge, they had some knowledge, that we could separate polyester and cotton blended fabrics, so sheets, your linen, your tablecloths, your shirts, back into their raw materials for them to be reused. And so over a period of time and lots of failures, we've managed to create a process that effectively unlocks the cotton from the polyester. And then from then we then take the polyester, we melt it and we extrude it into a filament and chop it up into little pellets, which are basically the raw building blocks to go back into clothing or into playground equipment or into tabletops, anywhere where PET is used. And the cotton is then broken down into a cellulose powder. And remarkably, I didn't know this, the cellulose can then be spun back into a fiber, but it's used in all everyday products that we all encounter, we never think about. It's used as a thickener in paints and adhesives. It's being used in cement to create strength and lighten the load of things. It's used in cosmetics. It's used as a food thickener, and really interesting, it's used as a pill casing. So it's the delivery method for your Panadol.
Okay, so this is amazing. With what were we doing before Blocktexx came along? What method did we use to recycle textiles in Australia?
We give it to the charitable sector, and they try to on-sell it, but the volumes are so large they can't sell everything, and so what happens is they export those products into a global second-hand market. Now that was quite profitable, but the profit on that has been declining year on year and year because the market is actually flooded globally, and now we've got to the point with COVID, those markets are all shut down, so there's no export markets. The market probably will not recover. Because there's so much volume, businesses have gone out of business. But then also what we're finding now is that there's all this unsold stock. So all those stores that have been shut globally, they've moved into the next season. So all that stuff is going to come back into that market. So this second-hand market, only place it can go at this present time is into landfill.
And it's not just clothes, is it? It's sheets. I think about hotels. I don't know how long a hotel keeps sheets for, but they must have a limit on how long they're able to do that.
Somewhere around about 80 to 100 washes. So
wow, that's okay.
Yeah, so they have about a 5 to 10% turnover each year on year. And the laundries who own that product are really proactive in that. They're really keen to get into recycles, and they're incredible supporters of our company, and they will continue because they understand that there is an impact. But equally, their view is also in the long term, not only stopping it going from landfill, but recovering those materials to go back into their supply chain. So they close the loop on their supply chain.
Yeah, okay. So I'm guessing you have significant, with an idea like this, how long have you been going, Graham? Is it 3 years or something?
Just over 2 years.
Okay, just over 2 years. You've achieved an extraordinary amount in just 2 years. I'm suspecting then that you've got significant support from government for this.
We've got a lot of conversation with government. Disappointingly, textiles isn't ranked as a key waste stream. So interesting, in Victoria, they just did a report. 165,000 tonnes of textiles go into landfill in Victoria. We recycle pretty much nothing.
Wow, yep.
If you combine e-waste and tyres, their total amount of waste going into landfill combined don't even make 165,000 tonnes. Yet we recycle up to 80% of both of those waste streams. And so what's happened now, the government has banned waste of plastic, glass, e-waste and whatever. And so the funding at the moment, that priority is going into there, whereas we've got textile waste that is just building up year on year. and we've got no solution but to send it to the charities. The charities don't have any option but to sell what they can here, but their export
Yes.
market's now gone on. So the next position is landfill. And we've got this Australian developed innovation that is world leading. There's only a handful of other companies around the world. We've all got different technology, but we're the only one in the southern hemisphere, closest to Asia, where 60% of the world's textiles are manufactured. And we can take this, not only develop that we can employ new jobs, economic growth into regional areas, but this is a licensed play. So we can then not only export the product globally, but we can export the technology globally.
So if you were then, because it sounds like not that you're skirting it, but it sounds like you've got a lot of conversations with government, but it's not moving really quickly. And if you were on an advisory board to government about the impact of waste textiles on climate change, what would you be saying to them?
Yeah, look, I guess well, preface, I'm incredibly disappointed. I'm disappointed the fact that we've the technology we've developed, and at this time it's manufacturing, it's advanced manufacturing, it's got an economic and an environmental impact, and we're going to employ people in regional areas. Like I kind of tick all the boxes that you hear the politicians talk about. I guess what I would say is that we delayed fixing the plastic problem that we've had for years, right? And now we're throwing a whole bunch of money into it, and we should have solved it beforehand. Textiles is exactly the same, and there is a huge opportunity to take what we consider as a waste that we kind of forget, but at the end of every day we all wear clothes, we walk on textiles, and we sit on textiles. It's in our everyday life. We can take that waste and we can turn that into a valuable resource that we can use as raw material in this country that we're currently importing. We can start to drive economic value into other industries. As I said, our point of view is that our raw materials can go into many industries, not just single industries. And then we can build this whole industry, waste resource recovery from textiles, as not only a domestic product but a strong export market. That technology then can forge forward. And then what we can do is the waste, because it's a raw material, you start to funnel into many other industries. So it's not just one industry to one industry, it's one industry to many industries. And textiles, because we've got this innovation, once you set a place, a North Star to go to, right? So there's lots of conversation about collection, and we can collect all we like, but unless you've got somewhere for it to go, landfill is collecting. So by building resource recovery, or many resource recovery companies in this facilities in this country, we've got a place for it to go. We've got product that's going out, but then we start to inform back into the textile supply chain. So we start to inform what can be recycled, what's the best methods. We start to make the flows of collection much more organized, and therefore more profitable, and therefore the brands can get involved, the charities can get involved, the states can get involved. And so until you build something for it to go to, you're just kind of having lots of circular conversations, which is what's kind of happening with circular economy.
Right. Okay. So we need, for all of that to happen, our government needs to take the same approach and have the same philosophy as they did with recycling cardboard and plastic, because as consumers, most of us we're pretty good with that now. We go, all right, I need that goes there and that goes there. What can we as a consumer do to reduce textile waste?
Yeah, I think also the industry is to blame as well. We can't just lay it all on the government. Globally, the textile industry invests about 1% of their gross turnover. Whereas you think about pharmaceuticals and that sort of stuff, they're investing sort of 15, 20, 30% back into innovation. So the industry itself has got ownership, because at the end of the day, they made it. They know the product they were making, but they've got no stewardship. There's no take-back scheme. So I guess it's as a consumer, look at the brands who are not only using more environmentally friendly fabrics, but then have a kind of they're either doing something for the environment, or they've got an end-of-life plan for your garments, so you can take it back. But equally, if they've got an end-of-life plan, but where does it go? So if they're saying we're collecting your clothes, then you ask, well, what happens to them? Because if they're getting donated and they're being reused, that's fantastic. But if they're getting collected and there isn't a Blocktexx for it to go to, well, why is that? And so brands, or the industry itself, has a huge opportunity to invest in companies like Blocktexx, and they are in Europe and the US, but the Southern Hemisphere, we're still lagging.
So are there any big companies that are actively contributing to creating recycled product out of existing product.
Yeah,
Any big companies doing that?
Yeah. So companies like Patagonia, the outerwear company, they've been leaders for a while, and they've invested in sort of technology. H&M have been very active. I guess H&M play a double sword. They invest in fixing the wrongs that they create by the products they make. I think they're at least active from that point of view. The industry itself, there's lots of initiatives going forward, and I applaud them for that. But at the end of the day, investing in innovative resource recovery technologies unlock a whole bunch of questions. So Blocktexx sits at the end of the supply chain from a textile point of view, but the beginning of a supply chain for a whole bunch of other industries. And I think the challenge that the fashion industry has is that they look at through the lens of how does this work for my marketing? How does this look for my as I sell a product? When actual fact, by doing this and investing in companies and having an attitude, that is actually marketing itself without having to market. Because we as consumers know about recycling, as you said.
Yes.
We understand how to clean some stuff up. We understand. Yep. We go, well, if I donate my clothes to here, I expect that to be recycled. And if that's not happening, well, that's damaging your brand more than anything else. And so I think fashion brands, when they start thinking more about being smart about their supply chain, smart about the resources, as opposed to what's our marketing angle on that, I think then that will change. But there is companies that are moving forward. Yeah, I
know. I agree. I think that the consumers are savvy now, and we want to know what we're buying and where it's going. Graham, you mentioned before that you're in TV for a long time, cameraman, production, executive. I'm a firm believer that everything that we do in one job is preparing us to help us out in another job, further down the line. Tell me, what skills did you learn from television that have helped you in startup world?
Yeah, absolutely. So I suppose talking about Kusaga, research. So being able to take a complex subject you don't know anything about, drill it down to really easily understandable pieces that you can articulate to an audience. I think that's been really important. I don't necessarily have to know how the chemistry works. I don't have to necessarily know how a complete supply chain works, but I've got to have kind of that little piece. And I remember when I used to make documentaries, or actually a lottery program, television makers know a little bit about a lot of things. We don't, we're kind of topsoil kind of people. We don't kind of get down in that deep soil, because that's not what we need to do. That's what you have an expert on. So you'll go, you need enough to tell the story, and then the expert says, enough to tell the story to move it along, and then the expert says. Okay. I've learned, so as I've gone through all my industries, and when I was in Australia, we were one of the first companies to bring digital editing, so computer editing of television programs in the country. Yeah. And so I knew that trend was happening, and we were able to adapt that. So I was already an editor at that stage. So I had the skill set, but I was using basically, think about tape to tape, so VHS to VHS editing. But when I knew that the flexibility that being able to move things around on your computer screen like we do every day, it would be the future. And that was at the start of all the reality TV show programs we had in the early 90s. And so identifying the trends and identifying what technology is going to allow you to unlock the opportunities. And I've taken that from television. And the other thing I took from television is that it's about a story. So it doesn't matter what business you're running. If you can sell into people the story that you're doing, there's a reason why you're doing it, then that allows you to, it not only opens, it's over and above selling things to people, it opens doors for you. It also shows that you're a genuine person, and it increases your network. And so being able to sell the story of Kusaga, I didn't have to have a background in fashion. I just had to have a background in saying, well, this is the business we should have. This is the fashion business we should have. And I targeted into a market of athletes who, at the end of the day, kind of like, if the climate goes to shit, where else are they going to run? Yeah. So they kind of got that. And so they either choose a polyester shirt from here or one of our natural shirts from us. I can still go and run, but at least I'm making an active choice. They don't have to go and tie themselves to a tree. They don't have to go and protest, but by spending their dollar, they're actually making an impact. So I think those kind of things from that point of view. And then also the other thing, which led me into kind of helping me with Blocktexx and stuff, is, and I guess that's kind of innate in my personality, is curiosity.
Yeah.
When you make television programs, you can't hate anything. You've got to love everything. And I remember making documentaries not only in Australia but when I lived in Asia. And I was working for Nat Geo and Discovery, and they'd basically helicopter me into these countries, and we'd make a series of documentaries. To just be able to sit there and listen to somebody tell you about how they make stuff, like, you know, if somebody was telling a great story about two ants crawling up a wall and the reason they were doing that fascinates me, because I'm curious as to what they look at. And I think as you travel or as you experience time with people that aren't in your community, you learn so much, and you learn to be curious about and look at things through their lens. And I think that kind of really helps from a business point of view. You know, I can believe that I need to do something from a textile point of view to change the world, but that doesn't mean that you see what I see. So I've got to be able to understand what you see and then be able to articulate my position from that perspective. And I think I've learned a lot of that from television that can now come into the businesses I run.
So would you then take, I think that's critical when you said, I might not see what you see. And this is important to us when we're pitching ideas, when we're like you know, constantly looking for new investment, we're selling our stuff. It's really important, isn't it, to go around to the other side and to perhaps ask people, maybe seek out people who wouldn't necessarily agree with you to find out where the gaps are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know when I came up with the Blocktexx idea, I basically went out and work. I think I spoke to 30 people and I pitched essentially the same business to them, but in different ways. And I found people who I knew would disagree with me, because I needed to know what I didn't know. You need to keep evolving. I call it road work. Everyone's got ideas, and there's great ideas, lots of great ideas, but we're often constrained by not wanting to share it in case somebody steals it. And, you know, I've had television shows stolen off me many times. Just, you've got to move on. But you can't formulate the idea without getting input from people, both positive and negative, because that also helps you hone your argument. It also helps you go back in and say, well, if I missed something, what am I not asking myself here? And so often the conversations where people disagree with you are the most valuable. But that goes hand in hand with one thing you have to do is you have to take your ego in one hand. You've got to put it so far down in your pocket that you can't get anywhere near it.
Yes.
And you've got to appreciate the fact that person has a different perspective, but that doesn't mean that they may not come around to your perspective, but also may not be your job to change it. Your job is to take what they had to say, get that into an idea and get that into the masses, because on every curve there's early adopters and then the masses come later, right? And so you go and you use all that knowledge to go and hone where your key markets are, and you target them. Go and find your what do they say, that your 1,000 fans, get them up and running, get them to make sure they improve your product and drive from there, and then go out in the markets. Trying to change people's perspectives, attitudes is a long road. You're better off being somebody who creates a product with some people who really love it and lead from the front and hope that people come around from that perspective.
That's great advice. It's really great advice, Graham. Yeah. Now, I know you're an endurance athlete and you have... Former endurance athlete.
Stuck in my tummy.
Getting a bit podgy these days, are you, mate? I love that. Welcome to our club. Okay, so as a former endurance athlete, I know that you seem to have a bit of a love for adrenaline. You used to ride motorcycles, is that right, in competitions?
Yeah, I used to race motorcycles, yeah. There's nothing like... And I was listening to Kathy Freeman the other day, and she talked about when she walked out in the 400-meter final of the Olympics, and she said she walked out and there was, 100,000 people screaming at her, but she kind of didn't hear it. She was completely focused. And for me, in various times of being an athlete, so long-distance racing, you kind of go into some sort of level of focus. And it's really interesting. It's a word I was thinking about the other day. When I first started racing, my coach said to me, you have to get comfortable. You have to get comfortably uncomfortable. You have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because if you're racing an Ironman race that can take 11 or 12 hours, it's a long day, and there's a lot of ups and downs, and there's plenty of pain in that. So you just got to get comfortable with being hungry, tired, sunburnt, thirsty, sore, exhausted, cramped, whatever. You just got to take that, put that in a place, be comfortable with that. And business is a lot like that, especially when you're trying to grow your own business. You've got to go, oh man, this really hurts. I'm uncomfortable about public speaking. I'm uncomfortable about pitching. I'm uncomfortable at asking somebody who I know is going to disagree with me. But you've got to get comfortable with that and know that that's a temporary thing. It comes and goes, and you just got to push through it. But motorcycle racing for me was, if you're going down, I was lucky to race at Phillip Island many times. And it's an amazing racetrack basically on the tip of Australia. From there it's Antarctica. And so it's really affected by the winds. It's affected by the weather, can change so fast, but it's just beautiful. But you come on that last corner, and exit speed for my bike was about 270. The other bikes are much faster, but 270 is not bad. But you come around the corner, and you're doing a good speed, and then you're tucking behind that screen, and it dips down, and then all you see is racetrack, and you dip up, and all you see is water. The focus you have at that point is just incredible, because you don't feel like you're going fast, because at that speed you're just going in a straight line, right? So almost the world slows down, and you're just in this bubble, and it's just you feel so connected. And then those races where you're often racing with a bunch of bikes at high speed, and you bump each other, and there's all that kind of, your bike's moving around. When you get across that finish line, that moment of focus goes, and there's just this feeling of just, I guess, relief, but excitement and
like euphoria.
You just feel so alive. You feel incredibly alive. It's not for everyone. I know everybody feels things differently, but I know when I think I've said it to you before, my saying is, helmet on, visor down, brain off. And that's not to say you're an idiot. It's to say, forget everything else in your life. The only thing you're doing for the next X 10 laps or whatever is racing a motorcycle. And so that focus, it's for me, it's such a gift. And I haven't been racing for a while, and I miss it. I miss it terribly.
Yeah, the way you're describing it, it sounds so appealing, and I've never even thought about being on a motorbike racing. But I understand that absolute laser focus, and that it's actually that really being present. And so many people say, when you're close to death or you're taking a big risk like that, that's when you feel the most alive. So you've done heaps of marathons, triathlons, all the stuff around the world. Is there one, you use the world as your outdoor gym, I've heard you say. Is there one particular event that you've done that is really special to you that you could tell us about?
Yeah, so I'm hoping I'll never get conned into again, but I had a friend who suggested that we should do a marathon together, and I thought that's fine. I've done marathons. His suggestion was that we do the Great Wall Marathon. This is in China.
I was assuming it was that Great Wall.
I just preempted it, and literally it is on the Great Wall of China. And I'd never been. And that seemed like a great idea. So off we went to this Great Wall China. So the Great Wall Marathon is literally outside of Beijing, about three hours. And you catch the bus out and you go and run that. And it's about 20 plus kilometers on the Great Wall. And it's an incredible experience. It's just, the whole lot is just, it's mind blowing. You're running through the villages, and people are stopping and cheering and clearing. Kids are out there, and then you find yourself in the middle of nowhere. And then you're on the wall, and you kind of, at one point, you're looking up, and all you can see is the wall that you've got to get to. And then you get up the top, and it tips down and up, and it's just, it's amazing. It's about 5,200 steps, so it's a decent run. But so I did it the first time, and we've got really close friends here in Sydney, and she had a brain tumor, and she had a brain tumor. She actually went and had it removed, and there's a lot of complications during the surgery, and she was very sick for a very long time. I remember visiting her in ICU, and I said, and we're having a chat, and she said to me, Graham, if I get out of this ICU, I found the whole running the Great Wall Marathon amazing. Would you do it with me? And I was
again.
It's like, I didn't want to do it the first time.
You can't say no, right?
Well,
You
yes, I
couldn't say no.
but also thought it was a fair bet because she wasn't a runner at that stage. So
Oh,
in the meantime, I'm building Kusaga Athletic. So I'm flying in and out of Australia and spending time in Asia, sitting on shop floors and just running ragged, trying to build this business. So I wasn't doing a lot of training, but she started training. And so we went, okay, so we booked our tickets, but she was doing all this long running. I think the longest I ran was about 18 Ks before we went away. So I was really underdone. But I remember standing there with her at the start, and she was so excited. And for me, I'd been to Beijing a couple of times, and I love the city.
yes.
I think it's just amazing. But to share that with her was really special. And then to be on that start line, emotional now. So anyway, we managed to get through it, and it's long. It's a long run, but it was a lot of fun. We laughed a lot, but thankfully for me, we set her watch that her heart rate couldn't get over 170 beats per minute because that put more stress on her body,
Right.
which was thankful because I was Fennec and I was praying every time I went beep, beep, we go, it's okay, we'll just walk for a bit.
Nice trick.
So I remember you run down, and we're coming down. There's the last few Ks. You come down off a mountain, and you're coming down into basically a battlement out on the outskirts of a small town. And we both literally kind of stopped at the same time. This is years ago. We both literally started crying. It was so, I guess it's a point where you feel alive. Like it was so amazing to go through something with somebody. I was so proud of her to do it. But yeah, so, and if anybody hears this, no, I'm not interested in doing it a third time. Maybe.
Cool. Maybe.
I'll consider it. But no, that was really lucky. But all those things that they form not only who you are, but they also give you reference points when things get tough in business or get tough in life. You go, well, that's not really hard. Like I just had to go and run a marathon. She had to get through multiple surgeries and really serious illness.
Yeah.
To get there to do that, right? So she was the one that did all the hard work. I just had to kind of turn up. But
let's give her a shout out, Graham. What's her name?
Philippa Kendrick.
Go Pip Kendrick. Yeah, you are a champion. Graham. Okay, so before you go, I've got a joke for you. So, are you ready? Because I know you're a cyclist.
I'm ready. I'm ever ready. Yeah, absolutely.
Now I've got to remember it. Why can't a bicycle stand up on its own?
I don't know, Lynn. Why can't a bicycle stand up on its own?
Because it's too tired.
Ding.
Okay, so maybe I shouldn't have even said that joke. Have you got any tips for the Tour de France? I should ask you, being a mad cyclist.
Oh, if you ever get the chance to go to the Alps, whether it's Italy or France, just to go and experience them. But to cycle up them is incredible. There's a couple of stages and coming up that in the next few, well, certainly now that I've ridden, and they're just incredible experiences. We often go away for a week cycling, but the great thing about the week cycling is that you can pretty much then eat and drink your way across France and not put any weight on, right? So it's a great balance, but you equally have to be as enthusiastic with the wine and cheese consumption as you are with the cycling. So you've got to put in on both morning and evening stages.
I think I could do the wine and cheese. In fact, I'm a champion at wine and cheese, but I'm not so sure about the cycling.
Well, sometimes getting a support crew to move your bags around is always handy. So maybe that's something you could do. You could be forward logistics.
Graham, I would love to keep talking to you, but we are sort of out of time. You have left us with so much to think about. What do you think are across all this, there's their own personal journeys, and here are you out trying to save the planet. As people, as individuals, what do you think are the key traits that can help drive us forward through adversity, both in business and running marathons?
I think curiosity is the most, because curiosity gives you such a gift. You're constantly learning. It takes you out of your every day-to-day. When you look at kids who just stop and look at a flower or look at the color, like a different color, it just gives you time for your body your brain to just clear itself and focus on something. I think that's really important. I think especially this time, and this is something I've always done, is I'm I'm all in. So if I choose to do something, I'm all in. I don't just go, it's not just a passing thing. So by doing that, you're really selective in what you're all into. I've got lots of
Yes.
interests, but the things I'm really into, I'm really into.
Yeah.
And by being really into them, that gives you a real focus, and it gives you a gift of achievement. It gives you a gift of learning, and also it takes you outside of the day to day. And
Yeah.
I think that's really a gift. And the other thing is, from my point of view, is from a work point of view, work when you're working, work. Right?
Yes.
So get in work. When you're not working, don't work. So don't
Yeah.
drag that along. And it's really easy for entrepreneurs or people who are trying to do stuff, owning their own business, to drag that into their life 24/7. And that's not healthy. It's not good for you. It's not good for your family. So, but when you work, just get in there and do it. And that way you'll focus, you'll be more productive, and you'll be more satisfied from that point of view. But then equally, it's a yin and yang. When it's playtime, play. And
That's a lovely
that stuff.
Yeah, okay. That's a lovely place to end. When it's playtime, play.
Right.
Graham Ross, it has been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I think you're doing some amazing work. Good luck with saving the planet.
Thank you very much.
See you
Come
later.
along for the journey.
Yeah, okay. We will do. See you later. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed Graham Ross just as much as I did. Not only for his delightful Great Wall Marathon story, but for bringing the massive issue of waste textiles to our attention. Just imagine the impact we could have if we all got on board, just like we've done with plastics and with cardboard. So what's in your head right now? For me, I'm thinking that I need to rethink every time I buy something. How much do I need it? Where does it come from? What's the philosophy of the company, perhaps, behind the item? And importantly, where is it going to end up? And I'm also really into this idea of his that when you have an idea or something of worth to discuss, seek out people whose opinions might disagree with yours. Because not only does it help you hone your argument, but it also opens up your mind to other ideas. So if you want some excellent non-smelly t-shirts, head to kusagaathletic.com. And if you'd like to know more about Graham and the work that he does, head to Blocktexx, that's TEXX.com. And if you'd like to know more about what I do, head to my website, lynscanella.com.au, where you're going to find all things fruity. You can do a quiz to find out your preference of apple, mango, lime, or banana fruit personality, and have a look at all the different offerings I have around helping you to work with people that you just don't get. As usual, if you've enjoyed this podcast, I'd love you to leave a review over on Apple Podcasts, subscribe so you don't miss out on anything, and perhaps tell a friend so we can help to grow our community. And don't forget, respect, connect, and thrive. I'm Lynn Scanella, and this has been Fruitful Conversations.